Cherry blossom season is only a few weeks away, and I have some important updates if you're planning to check it out in 2025. But first, hello! My name is Rob. I'm a tour guide and founder of Trip Hacks DC Tours. On this channel, I share my best tips, tricks, and travel hacks for visitors who want to explore Washington, D.C. And don't stress out if you're watching this in early March. The cherry blossoms are not yet in bloom. I'm in front of a green screen, and this footage is from last season. I do have an important announcement though, which is that Trip Hacks DC Tours are now open for bookings this spring. There are a couple of different tour offerings, and tours with me specifically are only running on limited dates. Tickets are moving quickly. One tour is already sold out. So if you're interested, head on over to triphacksdc.com to check it out. And don't wait too long to get your tickets. Now, let's talk about some key dates for this year's National Cherry Blossom Festival. The official National Cherry Blossom Festival always starts on the same date, March 20th, the first day of spring. And this year, it will run through April 13th. Now, it's important to understand that while the festival itself is 3.5 weeks long, peak bloom is only about 1 week long. At the time I'm recording this video, the National Park Service has already made a prediction for peak bloom, and the meteorologists at Capital Weather Gang have also made a slightly different prediction for peak bloom. I'm not going to say the dates out loud, because official guidance from the National Park Service is forecasting peak bloom is almost impossible more than 10 days in advance. And we are currently more than 10 days out. Predictions can and will change. Bloom dates are not set in stone. Now, let's run through some of this year's festival events. This year's opening ceremony will be held on Saturday, March 22nd. The opening ceremony is a ticketed show held at the Warner Theater. And if you can't get tickets or won't be in DC on that date, no worries, because you can watch it on the live stream. A couple of days before that, on March 20th, is Stumpy's Pedals and Paddles race. I believe this is the inaugural event, where racers will pedal their little boats across the Tidal Basin. It is named in honor of Stumpy, R.I.P. And if you're curious about what happened to Stumpy, the fan favorite cherry tree from years past, I've got some important updates about him later in the video. The Tidal Basin welcome area and main stage will be active from March 22nd through April 6th. You can find it on West Basin Drive, right outside the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. The main stage has over 100 performances scheduled. Everything from music to dance to other forms of performing arts. In the past, they've also had a tent, what they called a beer garden, where you can get some drinks and enjoy the performances. The Cherry Blossom Kite Festival is scheduled for Saturday, March 29th, with a rain date on March 30th. This is personally one of my favorite events of the festival, and probably the only day of the year when I root for a really windy forecast. If you want to check out what a past kite festival was like, I took a walk around and recorded it last year. And in the description, I will link to a playlist that includes that video, along with tons of other cherry blossom videos that I've made in past years, including virtual tours, cherry blossom bike ride, and all of my best cherry blossom tips. Pedal Palooza is happening this year in and around the Yards Park. Pedal Palooza is an all-day celebration of spring, and it ends with fireworks over the Anacostia River at dark. This year's National Cherry Blossom Parade is scheduled for Saturday, April 12th. As far as parades go, this one is personally my favorite parade in DC. If you've never been before, and you can swing it, I do recommend getting a ticket for one of the seated sections. This year, they have 3 seated sections. One at the beginning of the parade route, near where they do the TV telecast, and 2 more towards the end of the route. And if you don't want to pay for seats, no problem, there's standing room in between where you can watch. A few other events happening this year that caught my eye. Blue Maru is happening on March 29th at 4 p.m. at the wharf. This is the big spring celebration at the wharf. And similar to Pedalpalooza, it also concludes with fireworks over the Washington Channel. For runners, the Cherry Blossom 5K is scheduled for Saturday, April 5th. And the prestigious Cherry Blossom 10-mile race is the next morning, Sunday, April 6th. Sakura Matsuri is the Japanese street festival and the largest celebration of Japanese culture in the United States. This year, it's a 2-day event on April 12th and 13th. And this one is a ticketed event, so make sure if you want to go, you get your tickets in advance. The Washington Wizards and DC United are both hosting cherry blossom themed games on Saturday, March 29th. And if you buy a ticket to the Wizards game through this QR code, you also get a special cherry blossom themed Hawaiian shirt. On April 5th, there's a Japanese Culture Day at the Library of Congress, one of my favorite buildings in DC. And on April 17th, there's a Spring Sake Festival, where you will have the opportunity to taste over 100 brands of sake, if you're over 21 and into that sort of thing. Like I said, these are just some of the events that caught my eye. It's not a comprehensive list, and if you're going to be in DC during the Cherry Blossom Festival dates, I highly recommend going on the official National Cherry Blossom Festival website and seeing what else is happening while you're here. Now, let's address the elephant in the room for 2025. The Tidal Basin seawall is in the process of being rebuilt. And as a result, there are over 100 fewer cherry trees in the area between the Jefferson Memorial and the FDR Memorial, including Stumpy, the fan favorite who was removed after last year's festival. However, a bit of positive news is that the brilliant scientists at the National Arboretum have cloned Stumpy. So it's possible that we could wind up with 5 Stumpy clones around the Tidal Basin at some time in the future. When you go to the Tidal Basin this year, you will see big fences, keep out signs, cranes, and construction equipment. The seawall project is currently scheduled to wrap up in spring 2026. I'm not going to lie, this construction project is going to be an inconvenience this year and next year. But I will say this as a tour guide who spends an enormous amount of time in this area. The Tidal Basin was previously in horrible shape, with huge, frequent floods, and this project was years, if not decades, overdue. Plus, once the project is complete, they will plant even more cherry trees than what was removed last year. So, a net gain. This year, you can still see cherry blossoms on the north side of the Tidal Basin, at the MLK Memorial, at East Potomac Park, and at the Washington Monument, in addition to lots of other locations. So don't worry, there are no shortage of cherry trees for you to experience. Now, if you are planning to come to DC this spring, there are 2 important pieces of content that I want to make sure you are aware of before your trip. The first is my Cherry Blossom Guide for visitors. The other piece of content is a podcast episode that I just published on March 1st about what to expect in Washington, D.C. tourism-wise in 2025. Because there are some important things you need to know this year, and I want to make sure you arrive with the proper expectations. Enjoy your trip,